Portrait of Life 2025 podcast. I am your host, Tennial, the voice of 87.7 right on radio. Can you dig it? And with me is my co-host, the great philanthropist, publisher, author, Miss
Everything.
Sharonda Walker.
I appreciate that. You're so kind.
And one of our 2025 honorees, the third year that we're having it, we have with us Pastor Nathaniel Drew of the Breath of Life 7-Day Adventist Church. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
You know, you do realize that you were chosen not by us, but by the community that you serve. And that makes the honor even greater because it says that you are recognized not only by your peers, but by the people you serve. There's a scripture that says, let the elders that rule well be worthy of double honor. And this is an honor for us to show you our gratitude for your service to the community, Pastor Drew. Now, as I noticed, I expected an older man.
Yeah, you talked about that.
As pastor. So, how long have you been pastor?
Yeah, so I've been pastoring for going on 13 years now, and it's been an awesome experience. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot. Obviously, when I started, I was 23 years old.
Wow.
And so there was so much that I came into ministry not knowing. And one thing that my mom instilled in me from young is never lose your willingness to learn. And so my chosen approach coming into it was, I just want to come in and learn. I want to soak up as much as I can, not just from other pastors, but also from the people I'm able to pastor. Many of them have been around longer than I had at that point. And so I just wanted to soak in as much as I can. And so taking that stance of learning has really helped me to avoid some pitfalls, build some relationships, and grow in the 13 years I've been blessed to do this.
So you this is our second podcast. We decided to start the Visible Portrait of Life podcast as a way to allow the viewers and listeners to learn more about our honorees. It's obvious people believe that you are doing some positive things, God's work. We just want others who may not even know you to get to know you and find out what is it about you. You mentioned you've been ministering for about 13 years and that you have learned and you're always willing to learn. But can you share maybe a pitfall or obstacle that you were able to go over or overcome, what you learned from it? Can you share that with us?
Sure. Just being completely transparent, one thing that I have struggled with for many years is caring a whole lot about what people think of me, how people view me, right? Okay. And it's because I value people a lot, but also it caused me, I had to realize, it caused me to kind of be trapped in a prison, right? Because I had to come to the realization that no matter what you do, there will be some who like you, some who don't. Yes. There'll be some who like what you do, and there'll be some who don't. And there'll even be some who prefer your leadership, and then some who don't prefer your leadership. And some of those times, it's not always personal, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes people want an older pastor. Sometimes they they want certain views, whether it is more conservative or more liberal. And I think early on, I fell into the trap of taking everything personally, right? Okay. Now, some things are personal, and then you deal with those things and you pray through it. You grow through it, but what I've learned in ministry is that not everything is a personal attack against you. Sometimes people can like you a whole lot. You're just not their cup of tea, and that's okay, right? Okay. Because every cup of tea is not mine, right? And right. So I had to learn to grow past being trapped into how people view me, whether they viewed me highly or whether they viewed me, lowly. Not to get trapped in that prison, which means I always have to be mindful of how God views me, because it helps me to stay level. And I don't get too high based on what you think. I don't get too low based on what you think. I'm comfortable being who God has called me to be and living that truth.
Very good. Very good.
How did a young man such as yourself feel the need or call to be a servant or pastor in this way? What is your background that made you receive that calling?
Yeah, Ms. Danny, I love that question. Anytime I'm asked it, because it gives me the opportunity to share. And I always keep this story close to my heart, because it's what I always return to when I face times of difficulty in ministry, and I get to think back on this and remember why I'm here in the first place. So church is nothing new to me. I've been born into it, raised into it. My denomination is Seventh-day Adventist, and I am a fifth generation Seventh-day Adventist. And so growing up in the church and being in the church was nothing new to me, right? Okay. Now, with that church culture and being familiar with all things church, never did it occur to me or cross my mind pastoral ministry. I mean, not once. If you asked me at 10, even 15 years old to compile a list of 100 careers that you could see yourself doing. 100, right? Pastoring would not have been on the list of 100. Wow. It was that far outside of view. It wouldn't even made the 100 list. Okay. So for me, my top thing was I wanted to be in business for myself. Okay. I was an athlete growing up, still am. Played basketball, and so obviously I had those NBA dreams. And then when I realized that wasn't going to happen, I said, well, I want to own my own sports and health clinic, and that was my passion. So I thought that was my dream, and so that was where I was headed until I was a junior, toward the end of my junior year in high school. I'm 16 years old. I had a pastor at that time. Her name was Brenda Billingee. She came to me and she said, Nathaniel, I would like for you to be our speaker for Youth Day. We had a Youth Day coming up, and we would like you to be the speaker. So little did she know, my number one greatest fear growing up was public speaking. Okay, whenever I had to do a group project, whatever it was, I would shake, I would get nervous, palms sweaty, everything. Okay. So she asked me, and I politely turned her down. I said, no, that's not my gift. If you want me to usher, I can deacon, but I don't want to do that. Well, I'm thinking that she would leave well enough alone, but she didn't. She kept coming. She said, something just really tells me that you're the one, for this. Would you just consider it? And so I told her I would pray about it. Forgive me, I didn't pray about it. I just let her know that I would, so I can come back and say no again. And I did that. But then she asked me, did I pray about it? And I didn't want to lie to my pastor, so I said, no, I didn't pray about it. I will this time. So the long and short of that is I ended up praying about it, talked to my mom about it, and I agreed to do it. Had an elder at the church who brought me over his house one weekend, helped me to develop a sermon. I'd never written a sermon before, spoken to anybody before, or spoken in front of anyone before. And so he helped me do it. The day came, I did it. I was nervous, but there was a certain, I don't know if I want to call it thrill, but there was a certain excitement and satisfaction when I did it that I did not expect to have. And so I did it. When it was done, breathed a sigh of relief. Never have to do that again, right? Until she comes to me after service that day, and she says, Nathaniel, I want you to pray about going to Oakwood University as a college in Huntsville, Alabama. It's a Seventh-day Adventist institution. Most of our pastors, especially in Black Adventism, go through schooling there. She said, I want you to pray. Went there, really? Okay. She said, I want you to pray about going there and studying theology to become a pastor. And I'm thinking, wasn't it enough that I spoke for Youth Day? We have to
She's really working
on it. She's really working on it. So I told her I would pray about it, and I actually did. By this time, let me tell you, I had already gone to a college, applied there, took entrance placement tests for their business management program. I got accepted. So in my mind, that's where I'm going after senior year, right? So I'm in my senior year of high school. I've been praying about it, and I said, Lord, this is so far from what I want to do. If this is something that's in your will, you have to show me a for sure sign. So I'm in my 12th grade English class, public high school. My English teacher, Mr. Kim was his name, was a proud and professed atheist. Okay.
Did not believe.
Did not believe
Okay.
in God, wore it as a badge of honor even. And so in our particular class one day we were studying psychology, and we were studying Sigmund Freud. So he said to us, based on how you draw certain pictures, I can tell certain things about your life without you telling me. Now, I didn't believe that. I didn't believe him. And so when he asked for a volunteer, I shot my hand up. He called on me, all right, Nathaniel, come up to the front. I go to the front, there is a blackboard on the wall. It has a true and false column, and then it has an empty box on it.
Okay.
He says, I'm going to name to you a bunch of random objects. Don't spend too much time thinking about it. I'm not asking you to be an artist. Whatever comes to your mind, take a couple seconds, draw it in the box. And then he says, once you're done, in this true or false column, I'm going to say certain things about your life. If it's true, put a check mark in the true. If it's false, check mark in the false.
Interesting.
So I'm like, okay, I get to prove him wrong in front of all my peers. So I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm up for the challenge. He says, I want you to draw a tree, draw a star, a water well, the sun, the moon. Did it. So now he says, okay, I'm going to start telling you things about your life. Okay. So the first thing he says is, you were raised by a single parent, in which your mother was the one who raised you, and you have high admiration for her. Well, my parents divorced when I was 3, and my dad stayed in Virginia. Mom moved us to Maryland. He has not really been an active part of our lives, so she raised me my entire life.
Okay.
So I'm like, you know what? Lucky guess, right? I say that's true. Second thing he says is, based on how you drew the pictures, you are the oldest out of your siblings. Then he changed it and said, you're the second oldest, right? So now I was a little more intrigued because he was technically right in both answers. So out of my biological siblings, I have a twin brother and I have a sister who's 1 year younger.
Okay.
And I am the oldest out of my biological siblings.
Okay.
But I have an adopted older brother who's obviously not biological, but he's the oldest. So I said, okay, now I'm a little more intrigued.
Okay.
I put a check in the true column. The last thing he said was, based on how you drew the pictures, I'm going to tell you what you're going to go on, what I could see you going on to major in college and then pursue as a profession. So I said, okay.
Now, this is going to be interesting.
He says, based on how you drew the pictures, I see you going to college to major in theology and to go on to become a pastor. He said, if you don't do that, you'll settle and do business. He says, but your heart is in pastoring. So, as you can imagine, I mean, it's like an out-of-body experience. I'm in front of my peers. They're looking at me like, pastor, because some of them don't even know I go to church, and they're like, where did this come from?
And this is high school.
This is high school.
Okay.
And so I said, you know what? At that moment, I ran home after school that day, told my mom what happened, and I said, I took that as my sign from God. I said, I'm not going to run anymore. I applied to Oakwood University, got accepted, and I said, Lord, if I'm going to obey you, I need you to open every door for me from this point into pastoral ministry. And he did just that.
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah, so, and let me just also say this. Maybe, right, I say that's true. Second thing he says is, based on how you drew the pictures, you are the oldest out of your siblings. Then he changed it and said, you're the second oldest, right? So now I was a little more intrigued because he was technically right in both answers. So out of my biological siblings, I have a twin brother and I have a sister who's 1 year younger.
Okay.
And I am the oldest out of my biological siblings.
Okay.
But I have an adopted older brother who's obviously not biological, but he's the oldest. So I said, okay, now I'm a little more intrigued.
Okay.
I put a check in the true column. The last thing he said was, based on how you drew the pictures, I'm going to tell you what you're going to go on, what I could see you going on to major in college and then pursue as a profession. So I said, okay.
Now, this is going to be interesting.
He says, based on how you drew the pictures, I see you going to college to major in theology and to go on to become a pastor. He said, if you don't do that, you'll settle and do business. He says, but your heart is in pastoring. So, as you can imagine, I mean, it's like an out of body experience. I'm in front of my peers. They're looking at me like pastor, because some of them don't even know I go to church, and they're like, where did this come from?
This is high school.
This is high school.
Okay.
And so I said, you know what? At that moment, I ran home after school that day, told my mom what happened, and I said, I took that as my sign from God. I said, I'm not going to run anymore. I applied to Oakwood University. God accepted. And I said, Lord, if I'm going to obey you, I need you to open every door for me from this point into pastoral ministry. And he did just that.
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah, so, and let me just also say this. Maybe 7-8 years into pastoring, I was wondering to myself whether Mr. Kim still worked at Winston Churchill High School where I went. And I looked it up online. He was still there. So I sent him an email. And I said, I don't know if you remember me, but I wrote out the entire story as I just told you. I said, I just wanted to share with you that a major part of why I am where I am and who I am is because of my experience with you in your class. And this professed and proud atheist typed back, and he said, praise God. He said, praise God, I'm proud of you, happy to be a small part of this story. So that's what I cling to during difficult moments. I remember where God brought me from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So you've been the pastor of this church for 13 years?
Oh no, ma'am. So I've had, in our denomination, we do quite a bit of moving around. Okay. And so the first part of my ministry, I was in a conference because our church is broken up into conferences.
Okay.
The conference that I was in was called Allegheny West Conference, and they cover the territories of Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. And so I started out pastoring in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
I was then moved, and my wife and I went to Virginia. We were there in Charlottesville and Gordonsville, Virginia. Then we relocated to Cleveland, Ohio, spent 3 years there. From Cleveland, Ohio was when we came down here to what we call the South Central Conference. Okay. And I've been here in Memphis at Breath of Life for the last 4 years.
4 years, yes. Okay. Well, we're glad to have you in Memphis.
Oh, it's great to be here. I love it.
The fact that you've been in Memphis for just 4 years and your light is shining, where the work that you do, I can sense that you're passionate, about what you do. And it seems like you're very clear. You're very clear of what God has for you to do. We're excited to have you as one of the 12 honorees, Do you have any other questions? I got a couple more.
Go ahead.
Well, I sound a little country, please forgive me. But just the same, I wanted them to get a feel, our listeners and viewers to get a feel for you as a regular person. So is there something about you that most don't know?
Yeah, so if I had to say one thing, and I alluded to it a little earlier, the two ways I typically answer that question is, one, I tell people that I am an identical twin. And most people don't know that about me. My twin brother is down in Miami, Florida. He is a licensed clinical social worker and just doing a phenomenal job there. And so I normally tell people that. The other thing I tell people, because it's such a big part of who I am, which is my love for playing basketball. That is my main form of decompression, of de-stressing, and just kind of unwinding. When I move to a new place and get moved to a new church, there's typically two things that I do and I look for first. The first thing I look for is a barber, because I have to get my hair cut, right? So that's the first thing I look for.
Okay.
The second thing I look for is somewhere to play basketball, right? Okay. Because for me, it's not just about exercise and it's not just about de-stressing, but it also gives me an opportunity to tap into the community here, right? Mm-hmm. So I've met fire chiefs through basketball, police chiefs through basketball. I've met real estate agents and that I've bought houses, from through basketball. And I've been able, just to get a pulse on the community where I'm pastoring. And when I'm there and I'm on the court, I don't present myself or introduce myself as Pastor Nathaniel Drew. You know, I'm who I've always been, which is Nathaniel Drew, and that's who I am when I step onto the court. And it's always interesting to me that the more you get to know people, the question at some point always comes up. So what do you do? For a living. And then at that point, I share with them I'm pastor. You're a pastor, right? And and I love that reaction. But so many great ministry opportunities have come. I've been able to rub shoulders with so many influential and phenomenal people through playing basketball, and it's my way of staying attached to real people, right. and I love that aspect of it.
So what are some of the ministries that your church does, outreach ministries beyond the walls of the church? What are some of the things that your ministry does?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we actually just launched a new ministry model this year, January 25, and it's called Our Life Ministry Model. And it comes from our name, Breath of Life, and what it stands for us is that we want Breath of Life to be a place where we love, we invest, we fortify, and we equip people like Jesus does, right? Mm-hmm. So through that, our love ministry has a monthly love challenge where they find some way to challenge our members to show love actively for the people that we call church family inside of our church, and then for others outside of our church. Mm-hmm. Our Invest ministry has chosen to adopt single parents as their focus for ministry, right? Where we provide diapers and we provide wipes and formula and different things for babies. But then we also want to provide financial literacy classes and opportunities to be able to learn how to conduct yourself on an interview, how to put together an application so that we can help you find employment and kind of help your job to be a little easier as a single parent, right? Okay. Our Fortify and Equip ministries are put in place to help our church from a worship service standpoint to be geared in such a way where anybody that comes into our church building feels accepted, feels the love of God. And so, we are trying with this model not to do everything, but just to do something that lets people know Breath of Life cares about you.
Oh, I love that. Beautiful, beautiful.
What is, in light of everything you've said, and that is giving the community a great reflection of who you are and your approach to being a pastor, what for you, how do you want to be remembered as a pastor at this point? How do you want to be remembered?
That's a great question, and I have a very easy answer for that. If I wanted any legacy, or wanted people to remember me anyway, it would be this way. Nathaniel Drew loves God with his whole heart. Nathaniel Drew loves his family, his wife, and his daughters with everything in him. And he loves his people with everything in him. If those three things can be said about me, then regardless of the sermons, the ministry ideas, the baptisms, and everything else, if those three things can be said about me, he loves God, he loves his family, he loves people, without a shadow of a doubt, then I would say job well done.
Mm-hmm. So, as a pastor, see, I don't even have to ask you any more questions because you have certainly reflected and projected your philosophy as a pastor, as a man, as a family man, and as a server in the community. I also know that your church also has a food pantry for the community, right?
Yes, sir.
It comes about every third or second Thursdays, something like that.
Yeah, so it was active before and during the pandemic. We've since dissolved it. The one that we had that was in charge of it has since fallen asleep in Jesus. Okay. And so that kind of dissolved that ministry. And so it's not active right now, but you are true in what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. What would you say? There's a lot of criticism with the church and pastors now, almost like a disconnect with the younger community. Mm-hmm. People like, I'm 60, one.
And
You
wearing
know?
it well,
He
wearing
said
it
that, he
well.
said 61.
So, but you as a younger man and pastor, closer to the younger generation, what do is the church still relevant to the younger generation? What is your view and how do you feel to make it relevant?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that that the church, any church, is as relevant as you're willing to make it, right? For me, and I know that it's, people would see me, they would see my age, and then, to them, it would be natural. Okay, he's gonna go all in on catering to the young people, and it's gonna be easy for him to do it because he's young, right? And I think I have my mom to thank for this, but it's almost like she raised my siblings and I to be old souls. So we're young, but so you have an ability to connect with your age group. You have an ability to connect with those younger than you. But because of how my mom raised me, I also have been given an ability to connect with more seasoned folk, right? And so for me, my focus has always been, how can we be relevant to every demographic that God has blessed us with? Right? How can we tap into our more seasoned folk? How can we tap into our middle age members? How can we tap into our young members? And we haven't always hit the mark in that, right? We have some areas to grow there. Even right now, a part of our ministry model that I was just explaining to you all, a big part of that is that we want to get our younger people active in that. So here's what we said to our ministry leaders: our love ministry, invest ministry, fortify and equip ministry. Both of them have 2 co-leaders, and we challenged them. We said, we want you to find 1 or 2 young people who you can bring to the leadership table. Not just go to them and ask them their ideas and just say, oh, what would you like? But we want them to be brought into the leadership table.
So that they're part of the whole process.
Right. Exactly. We want them to have a seat at the table, right? So that we can have an active voice who knows what the younger generation is interested in, knows what appeals to them. We don't have to guess, because that is the mistake that many of us have made, myself included, is we try to look at culture, we try to remember what it was like for us to be 16 and 17 and 18, and then we try to guess what they need and what they want based on that, right? And so instead of making it harder for us and guessing and then being wrong and have to, redo your steps, let's bring them to the table and say, how can love ministry be designed in a way where it appeals to your friends?
Right.
Where it's something that they want to be a part of. And then we let them share with us, and then we adapt according to that.
Right. I know we're almost wrapping up time-wise, and we really appreciate you stopping by the Visible podcast, the Visible Light, Portrait of Light podcast. But I wanted you to, if you could, just leave our viewers with a vision, if you will. Being one of the 12 honorees for this year's event, which is going to be in April. What is it that you envision Memphis and the surrounding area to be like in terms of the people?
I would say, and this can be said for any city, right? But because this is our city, the vision that I have for Memphis is one of healing, right? When we look at the climate, especially political climate of the city, of our country, there's a lot happening right now that would lead to fear, that would lead to worry about what tomorrow is going to hold. And a lot of it is absolutely valid, right? And so what I would say to the Memphians and those who watch this is, we need you. We need you. This city is broken in a lot of ways, and we need healing. I would appeal to my people. This is not to exclude white, Asian, Hispanic, or anybody else, but I would make a general appeal to our people to say there's a great need for us to come together, right? interdenominationally, and whatever other, socioeconomically, there's a great need for us to come together to do what's necessary to heal our streets, to heal our community, to make this a city that we can continue to be proud of. And from a faith standpoint, I believe that that's going to be done through the help of God.
Yes.
But it's going to take every single one of us.
Very good, very good. Well, again, Pastor Drew, we want to thank you for coming out and being part of this podcast, but we want to encourage you to join in, if you haven't, to purchase your tickets for this 3rd annual Visible Portrait of Light event. It's going to be the last Sunday in April, April the 27th, at the Memphis Renasant Convention Center, and go to Eventbrite to find out how you can get your tickets and be in the place. He will be honored with an original oil portrait painted by Memphis' own master artist Larry Walker. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Anyone who is looking for a church home to visit or just somewhere to visit, 5665 Night Honor Road, we'd be more than happy to welcome you there. Thank you all.
Very good.